Mary Kay just tweeted out, guys, that Jedrick Wills, Jack Conklin, David Njoku, and Pierre Strong all out officially for Sunday's
What happened?
game.
I thought Jedrick Wills just said he was going to play.
Before the show, you and I were talking, and you said it sounds like Jedrick Wills is in line to play. Jedrick Wills officially ruled out, which means we have no godly idea what the offensive line configuration will look like outside of Zach Zinter at right guard and Ethan Pocic at center. Coming off a game against the Giants where the offensive line struggled mightily, G. Bush said it was the worst offensive line performance he had ever seen after watching the all-22 back.
Pocic is going to play center?
No, that's a good point, actually. We don't know.
Because he's moved to guard at one point?
Yeah, healthy, just don't know if he's going to play center.
Yeah, we know Bitonio's going to be in there. We know Pocic is going to be in there. And we know
Zinter
is going to play right guard.
And that's it.
Yeah.
So you got 3 pieces for 5 slots.
What's DeJuan's status? I guess is DeJuan playing?
Haven't heard that he's not.
The final injury report comes out tomorrow.
Okay.
Zach Jackson said either Bitonio or James Hudson will play left tackle. If Bitonio plays left tackle, we could see Pocic at left guard again, Harris at center, Zinter at right guard, and the right tackle could be, they called up Buffetti, potentially him, DeJuan Jones.
They signed a couple other guys for depth. Yeah. If they start, we're in big trouble.
It's a dire situation.
It sounds like DeJuan Jones will probably play right tackle. Otherwise, we would have seen some injury stuff.
I would think he'll be at right tackle. I would think Bitonio will be at left tackle. I just don't know if you put James Hudson at left tackle.
I don't. But then at least Bitonio and Pocic can play their positions.
I understand that.
It's not good either way. Let's face it.
What you're doing is you're playing a shell game.
Yeah.
And you're moving parts. You're trying to fit him into position. Bitonio is on record, he doesn't love playing left tackle.
No, and he struggled.
He has struggled at left tackle. He's just undersized. He's a guard. He's
not fast enough for those defensive ends.
No, his footwork, it's really tough. And by the way, this defensive line that we're going to see is going to be in the backfield all day, whoever plays.
This is, I have to look at the front office and say, come on, guys, you knew what it was. You guys knew these guys. All of them had surgery. And none of them were practicing. None of them were ready to play. This is what happens when you roll them out during the season. Like, Jedrick Wills was barely – like, let me just be completely honest with people. Jedrick Wills is not mentally or physically prepared to play at this point. He does not know his assignments. I saw him on film not block anybody and turn and spin in complete circles.
I saw that
and then
as well.
walked upfield. He's not physically able to play. He's not mentally ready to play. DeJuan Jones is not physically able to play. If DeJuan Jones is going to do what he did last week, they got to go get somebody off the street. They got to go find some people. And the front office knew this going into the season, and now you're here with a guard playing, left tackle, and Nick Harris, by the way, he's a fullback at this point. He cannot play.
He is.
Not big.
They treated him like a fullback in the game.
You're right. If Bitonio plays left tackle, if they shift, then you'll have Bitonio playing left tackle that he's barely
out of
played.
position.
You'll have Pocic out of position at left guard.
Yep.
You'll have a center who's undersized, a right guard making his first NFL start, and a right tackle who's
we don't even know if he's
overweight even for him.
And we don't even know if he's going to play.
Shape, and I guess we don't know he's going to play either.
Yeah.
It really can't be worse than that.
And so here's, I think, the problem. I think your comment about the front office overlooking this is exactly right. When Conklin was given the extension, we all kind of looked around and said, wait a minute, what?
Yeah.
I must have misunderstood his age. It's easy to think about. I always say the football team, the body and the coat of paint are your skills players. But the drivetrain and the engine are your offensive and defensive lines. And sometimes teams get caught up in the pretty. Mm-hmm. Oh, I need that Ferrari body and that red, candy apple red with flecks in the paint. I got to have that. And I need the new tires, and you look great. But then you start the engine, and you got a 71 VW Bug engine in the Ferrari.
Yeah.
What powers football teams, and the more I watch football, the more I'm entrenched in this belief. Yes, quarterbacks are widely important. But to me, you win in the trenches. If you can control the offensive line of scrimmage when you're on offense and the defensive line of scrimmage on defense, and if you look at the way the Chiefs, yes, they've got shiny parts, but they sacrificed some skill positions to make sure they were strong up front on both sides of the ball.
But to be fair to the Browns, now the criticism of not being prepared for the injuries at tackle is fine. It's fair. The Browns have spent more money on their offensive line than any team in football.
Not wisely, in my view, not wisely.
That's fair, but it's not like they've ignored the position.
No, but you've got to be very, very judicious and smart about where you spend the money.
I think part of the problem is it looks like Bitonio has gotten old.
Yes.
He has.
And that's part of the problem.
Yes.
I don't think – I don't know this for a fact. It's just speculation. I don't think they realized that this – like, I think they thought as a team that Jed Wills was going to be ready to go for the start of the season.
But Jed Wills, this is my problem.
Yeah.
Again, Jed Wills was never good.
But he was – well, listen.
No, he wasn't.
No. See,
what we did was we had a level of expectation for him.
Yeah.
And he was way below that. And then when he started to play okay, we thought, even Jason said, I guess that's what he is now. We'll accept it.
He was average. He was an average player.
At his peak.
And Greg Cosell, who studies the film as well as anybody, says he's better than that. So,
Listen, here's the reason.
But what were you going to do, G? You had Jed Wills for this year. They weren't going to spend big money on another tackle.
I think he's talking about going back in time. The Conklin extension was a head scratcher.
That was a bad one. Yes, I agree.
You didn't – see, this is what I believe. I believe people have diminished so many other aspects of the league that you wonder why are guys throwing for 150 or 160 or under 200? Because we kept saying, well, you can be a great quarterback and not have a great line. Joe Burrow did it. Hey, you could be a great quarterback and throw the ball 60 times a game. We don't need running backs.
Yeah.
And so now you got a bunch of people with a bunch of teams with below average line play and no running game and say, well, what's wrong? What's wrong with the league? What's wrong with the league is the Cleveland Browns game plan should have been what the Cleveland Browns game plan was from Jump Street. It's running the ball 30 to 40 times a game and figuring out whether they can dink and dunk and get down the field and score some points, play defense. But no, they decided with a bunch of offensive linemen that have been hurt, battered, and were run linemen to begin with, we're going to run 5 wide.
Yeah, it reminds me, G, of the girl who desperately wants to be tall, thin, and pretty, but she's not. But she's going to insist on wearing tall, thin, pretty girl clothes.
But that's a different subject from the offensive line.
It's what Jason wrote about. It's an identity crisis.
But what did you want him to do for the offensive line this offseason?
I would have liked them when there was guys out there in the waiver wires during preseason and say, are there some tackles available? There's opportunities in trades. There's opportunities in bringing in other guys and free agents. My thing is,
at that point, they knew there was an issue.
But to be fair, at that point, I don't know that the guys that you're talking about are any better than the guys you have.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
Ethan Poshitz was acquired that way.
You got Ethan.
Not a waiver cut down.
No, but still.
But look, I mean, Seattle gave up on him.
That's true.
You have guys. You knew Conklin and you knew Wills were hurt. And you knew they weren't playing.
Right, but by that point, like, who are you going to get?
But so this is
probably better players than you're able to get today.
This is the same conversation we had a couple of years ago against defensive tackles. When they went into the season 2 years ago with no defensive tackles, and then those defensive tackles either got hurt or were terrible, we said, well, what did you want them to do? I wanted you to take consideration that you knew this was not it.
And that's not a completely fair argument because the defensive tackles were clearly bad. They didn't have any talent.
Jed Wills is clearly, no, we didn't. Ain't no we. I told you from Jump Street Jed Wills was garbage 3 years ago. Ain't no we. We didn't say that. I said Jack Conklin should have never gotten an extension.
Well, we all
what
did.
Is the we?
You didn't mention once this offseason that the Browns should go get a different left tackle to replace Jed Wills.
I mean, do I have to say it 4 years in a row?
You thought they should have gotten a new left tackle this year?
I told you, I was reading Jed Wills' PFF scores off 2 years ago like he's at 40.
We were talking the whole offseason about what this team needed. We didn't spend much time talking about the offensive line.
Bull,
it's easy to say it
that's
now.
Fair.
To Bull's defense, we came into this season thinking the Browns had a top 5 offensive line.
Now that's true, but I was trying to wave every red flag I could. In fact, I had it in my top 5 concerns coming into the season about how much this team is going to miss Bill Callahan. Now, what Bill Callahan could do with this, I don't know. It's even worse than the mess he made look great last year. But this much I know. Last year, there were concerns with injuries on that offensive line. We saw that coming down the highway like a flashing train. We knew that there were issues with injuries. But what Bill Callahan was able to do last year was take chicken, you know what, and turn it into chicken salad. And when we watched, we said, wow, this offensive line, how are they doing it? Well, I think what they were doing was Callahan is so good, and he knows each guy's weaknesses that he was able to scheme it up so it looked acceptable on Sunday
I
afternoon.
personally don't think
Tennessee's
this has
offensive line
much
is
to do
trash
with
this year.
Yeah, but you have to also look at what he has to work with there. What he has to work with, what he had to work with here was not horrible. It wasn't. Postage was a guy that was an all-pro. Yes, we got him on the scrap heap, basically, but he was an all-pro. Joel Bitonio was still
But again,
not old.
nobody's
The
giving
Titans
me an
have
answer
offensive
as
linemen
to
in the first round the last 2 years.
Yeah,
They
but
have
that doesn't mean they're great.
I'm just saying it's not like they
I
have
mean,
nobody. They've
we've taken
invested
wide
heavily
receivers in
that.
the third round the last couple of years, and how have they
I
doing?
don't think
How are they doing?
I don't think this has that much. Obviously, losing Bill Callahan's a loss. I don't think they have veteran offensive linemen outside of DeJuan Jones. For those guys, it shouldn't matter whether Bill
Well,
Callahan's
the problem
here
is,
or not.
Bull, they're too veteran. Like you said it.
Yeah.
Sometimes we always forget that an offseason is 8 months long. And we forget how quickly 8 months can change for the 32-year-old, 34-year-old body that's been playing football
But
his
none
whole
of us
life.
thought Joel Bitonio was going to go downhill this year.
No, but we all knew it was an option. We all knew it was a possibility. Bull.
he's
It
33.
catches you-
What
but-
did you
but
want
gee,
them
it
to
catches
do?
you quick.
Here's
What did you want them to do? They're already spending the most on offensive line. What would you want them to do?
I wanted them to go back
Here-
to the extensions that they were giving
Very-
offensive linemen like it was free money,
Very-
and not do
Outside
that.
of Conklin, none of us had any complaints with the other What extensions? The only other extension was Bitonio. None of us had a problem with that because he's been great.
I had a big problem with the Conklin one. We all did.
But just Conklin,
So,
that's one.
So listen,
Yeah.
I would like them. Your answer your question is
Yeah.
go out and trade for offensive linemen.
But okay,
With
fine.
what assets?
But you're not going to get a good offensive lineman.
But-
Who's trading a good offensive lineman?
But here's the thing. You are stripping away development,
Yeah.
and you're stripping away your prowess as a GM to identify talent at other places. You can't say, well, unless I get a top 5 tackle, it's going to be a bust. No, you look at people on roster. That's what they
Yeah.
get paid to do. Look at rosters, evaluate talent, find diamonds in the
you're
rough,
not gonna
and
get a
bring them
star.
in.
You
But
just
you can
said,
get a serviceable
You just
player.
said offensive line plays terrible across the league. If there's an offensive lineman with any potential at all, why would a team trade him?
You listen.
Well,
Here's
why did Seattle trade Postage?
That was 3 years ago. I don't know.
No, but they missed. They missed.
Bull, you can get a guy. Every other offensive lineman is not garbage.
Gee, I'm just saying, like, if they trade for the 9th offensive lineman, it might be better, but it might not be any better.
So here's the thing.
Yeah.
They brought in guys off the street, right, last year? Right? Remember the
Yes.
Christensen guy?
Yeah.
And what happened? Did they go to the playoffs?
Christian's a
They
free
did.
agent. They can sign him right now.
There you go.
Let me ask you this, Bull,
Okay,
and I know that it's too early probably to ask this
Yeah.
question, but that's what we do. In certain seasons, you can point to one room and say that's where the season devolved. We've seen it happen at wide receiver. There's just no options. We've seen it happen at defensive tackle.
Yep.
So
I don't think it's just the offensive line. I think it's the whole offense.
No,
They all suck.
So here's my question. I know they all suck, but
Yeah.
let's face it, a quarterback that has no time to throw is a bad quarterback. Very rarely, now it's happened, I don't want to say it's never happened, but very rarely will a quarterback be able to overcome an absolutely god-awful offensive line, and that's what we're dealing with this year. To me, I know it's early, we're only going into week 4, but it already feels like when we autopsy the body in January, it feels like the death started at the offensive line. Is that fair for you? I know it's early, but I don't know how you win in football with this offensive line.
I don't know. They still, there's some degree of fairness to that, but to blame I'm fine kicking the Browns in the teeth because they deserve it quite often.
Sure, you do
but
it often.
I just think to they had Wyatt Teller, who's been a Pro Bowler. He got hurt. Like, what are you going to do?
Okay.
Zach Zinter might do. They drafted Zach Zinter. Like, maybe he's going to be good.
I like
You had Bitonio. He's a Pro Bowler. Now he's off to a bad start, but he might turn it around. Even though he's older, he's not that old. There's been older offensive linemen who've played well. You still have Pochich. Nobody was saying replace DeJuan Jones last year. He played very well last year.
Played awesome.
And now he's in terrible shape. That's his fault. That's not the Browns' fault.
Is it possible it's the Browns' fault?
I mean, they got to take a level of blame in that, sure, but
Yeah.
it's mostly his fault.
I'll say this.
Now, the left tackle situation, the one thing I'll say is, they signed Fetty and they signed Hakeem Adeniji this offseason, who are very low-tier left, tackles.
Yeah,
they
they're not
could have
the answer.
signed a better, fourth tackle, third tackle option, but outside of that, I can't kill him for the
How
guards.
much available cap space do the Browns currently sit
The
on?
Browns have a lot
The most.
now because they
Right.
kicked more down the road.
So
The most in football, Jay.
yeah.
They
Okay.
just signed 2 more guys to the practice squad. Just because we don't know their names doesn't mean they're not any better than the guys.
I know, but you know what
Yeah.
you're usually getting. You're going to the used parts.
I hear you, but that's all that's left at this point.
Well,
That's
listen,
it.
Yeah.
They got draft picks. Use them.
Obviously, the offensive line is going to be a priority in the draft going forward.
Well,
no doubt about it.
But see, that's the problem, though.
Yeah.
Because we've already said, or we got to get the offensive line. You don't have no receivers next year. Zero. No.
Well, Judy's here.
They got
You got
Judy.
Jerry Judy, and that's it. Amari Cooper won't be here. Elijah Moore won't be here. Who knows about Thrash? Who knows about Tim
Yeah.
and David Bell? You have no receivers.
Well, listen, they got a lot to do. They're going to have a lot to do this offseason. And the one thing I'll say is we know the Browns are not afraid to spend money, so they'll spend some money in free agency.
Well, they're
but
sitting on a mountain right
yes,
now,
the
and they like to have
offensive line
offensive
is a
linemen
major
instead of
problem.
money.
But frankly, the entire offense is a major problem. There's no unit that's playing well on the offense.
And you know what? To me, the worst part about this discussion is this. What did every single critic, expert, even some of the players, say was the most important thing about the 2024 season? We had to see what Deshaun Watson is. We're not going to see what Deshaun Watson is or could become.
I don't buy that.
Behind this offensive
I
line,
don't
Bull.
buy
We're
it.
just not.
I don't buy it.
Here's what I've taken already. He's not nearly as quick getting through his reads as he needs to be.
No.
So if you've got a bad offensive line, you better have a quarterback that can process at warp speed.
Okay, so you are
And-
learning about him that he can't.
Well, but the problem is, going forward, are you drafting a quarterback next year? I've already seen mocks for next year that the Browns are taking a quarterback.
If Deshaun Watson has a bad year, then if I were the Browns, I would absolutely take a quarterback. Or,
Yeah. And you also need wide receivers and offensive linemen.
Well, listen, every team needs a bunch of things.
So
outside of one or two.
that's crazy. So
Yeah.
you move on from them, but you're admitting that you need wide receivers and offensive linemen.
Yeah, but-
so I mean that kind of tells. So what a great work! What a great a pile of stuff that we got to deal with. Right? This is beautiful. He
Well,
got
it's the
weapons and
NFL.
everything.
Every
Being a
team has
Browns
to
fan.
deal with that.
And
the Browns are not the
especially
only
being
team
a
having to
Browns
deal
fan.
with that.